The Roman Empire stands as one of the most powerful and enduring civilizations in human history. At its height, Rome stretched from the sands of Africa to the moors of Britain, from the Atlantic Ocean to the deserts of the Middle East. But what made Rome so powerful was not just its military conquests or architectural achievements. Rome's true mastery lay in its ability to control fear, manipulate crowds, and rule not just territories, but the hearts and minds of millions. From the earliest days of the Republic to the autocratic rule of the emperors, the Romans understood one fundamental truth about human nature. People are ruled more easily through fear than through love. The Roman Senate, the generals, and the emperors all crafted sophisticated systems of psychological control designed to keep their citizens loyal, obedient, and above all, afraid of dissent. Roman authority was built on layers of symbolism, ritual, and public display. The average Roman citizen grew up surrounded by images of power. Statues of mighty emperors loomed in every city square. Temples dedicated to gods who supposedly watched over Rome's destiny dominated the skyline. Public ceremonies were grand spectacles where military triumphs were paraded for all to see. Even Roman coins carried the face of the emperor, a daily reminder of who ruled the world. Fear was instilled from an early age. Children were taught the glory of Rome, the fate of traitors, and the importance of loyalty to the state. Stories of rebellion and punishment were woven into education. Every citizen knew the cost of disobedience, and more importantly, they knew they were constantly being watched. One of the key tools of mass control was public entertainment. The Roman Colosseum, capable of holding more than 50,000 spectators, was not built just for fun. Gladiatorial games, animal hunts, executions, and staged naval battles were a carefully orchestrated spectacle of blood and awe. Citizens came for the thrill, but left with a reinforced sense of the state's omnipotence. Violence became normalized. Suffering became entertainment. In this brutal environment, the message was clear. Rome is powerful, Rome is eternal, and Rome punishes the weak. The games also served another important function: distraction. As long as the people were entertained, they were less likely to think about economic hardship, political corruption, or social inequality. The phrase bread and circuses, panem et circenses, captures this perfectly. Free grain and spectacular games bought loyalty far more effectively than any law or speech. Beyond the spectacles, Rome employed brutal punishments to keep order. Crucifixion, the most infamous form of Roman execution, was not just a death sentence. It was a message. Crucifixions were done publicly, on hills and crossroads where everyone could see. The suffering could last for days. It was designed to terrify anyone who even considered defying the state. Decimation was another method of control within the army. If a Roman legion rebelled or showed cowardice, 1 out of every 10 soldiers was executed by his comrades. This practice created a climate of mutual surveillance and fear within the ranks, ensuring discipline at all costs. Yet Roman control was not based on raw brutality alone. They also mastered the use of propaganda and psychological manipulation. Emperors presented themselves as semi-divine beings, chosen by the gods, destined to rule. Augustus, the first emperor, carefully crafted his image as the savior of Rome, the bringer of peace after decades of civil war. His statues depicted him as eternally youthful, almost godlike, and his reign was portrayed as a golden age. Roman architecture itself reinforced the idea of eternal power. The vastness of Roman temples, the engineering marvels of aqueducts, the triumphal arches, all these structures were not just practical, but symbolic. They said, Rome is mighty, Rome is eternal. You are small. You are part of something greater. Language and law were also tools of domination. Latin became not just a language, but a weapon of culture. Local customs were absorbed or crushed. Roman law was imposed everywhere, emphasizing the superiority of Roman civilization. Non-citizens were often made to feel inferior, and the granting of Roman citizenship became a powerful reward, binding elites in conquered territories to the empire. The military presence in cities and provinces reinforced control on a daily basis. Roman legions were not hidden away in distant garrisons. They marched through cities, held parades, manned outposts. Their constant visibility reminded everyone that violence was always just one command away. Religion, too, was bent to serve the empire. Emperors were often deified after death, and sometimes even during their lifetimes. Temples to the emperor cult spread throughout the empire, merging loyalty to Rome with religious worship. Resistance to Roman authority thus became not just a political crime, but a spiritual betrayal. Roman intelligence networks, though less discussed, were highly effective. Spies and informants reported on potential rebellions, dissent, and disloyalty. Governors were warned to suppress any unrest quickly and decisively. Preemptive strikes against suspected traitors became common, with arrests, executions, and confiscation of property. Economic control also played a critical role. Taxation was heavy and constant. Those who could not pay faced brutal penalties. Grain supplies were tightly controlled, with the state ensuring that the urban poor depended directly on the empire for survival. Economic dependence created another layer of obedience. Disloyalty could mean starvation. Mass rituals and ceremonies helped reinforce the collective identity of Roman citizens. Triumphs celebrated victorious generals with lavish parades through the city. During these events, prisoners of war were marched in chains, and the spoils of conquest were displayed for all to see. These rituals created a sense of participation in Rome's greatness, a sense that every citizen was part of an unstoppable force. Education in Rome also emphasized obedience and loyalty. Students learned history not as a critical inquiry, but as a story of Roman greatness. Great figures like Romulus, Julius Caesar, and Scipio Africanus were portrayed as heroic, virtuous, and divinely favored. Dissenters and rebels were vilified as traitors and fools. The power of collective fear cannot be overstated. Individual fear is potent, but mass fear is transformative. It paralyzes rational thought, fuels conformity, and creates fertile ground for authoritarian control. Rome understood this deeply. Fear was embedded into the very structures of daily life, in the streets, the markets, the temples, and the courts. But Roman control was not merely about suppressing rebellion. It was about shaping minds. Over generations, the values of loyalty, obedience, and reverence for Rome became internalized. Citizens came to believe that Roman rule was natural, inevitable, even blessed by the gods. This psychological domination outlasted even the empire itself. Long after the fall of Rome, its ideals and systems continued to influence future civilizations. The techniques pioneered by Rome, public spectacle, religious co-optation, legal domination, military intimidation, economic dependency, and mass fear, remain powerful tools of control even today. Governments, corporations, and movements across the world still use variations of these methods to influence, direct, and dominate human populations. Understanding how Rome controlled fear and dominated crowds is not just a historical curiosity. It offers insight into the mechanisms of power that continue to operate in the modern world. Whenever public spectacles distract from real issues, whenever propaganda elevates leaders into saviors, whenever fear is used to justify obedience, the shadow of Rome lingers. The lessons of Roman control show that the greatest empires are not built solely on armies or riches, but on mastery of the human mind. Rome conquered the world because it conquered fear, and through fear, it ruled for centuries. The structures may have crumbled, the emperors may have faded into dust, but the techniques endure. The Roman way of control lives on, woven into the foundations of modern power, a silent, invisible force still shaping human destiny.